Hey everyone, welcome again for another webinar brought to you by Nullcon team. I would like to inform you all that we recently completed a very successful edition of Nullcon online trainings, running 9 parallel sessions with over 150 students. If you would like your team to be trained from the best security trainers, do join us for our October edition, and the details would be announced very soon next week. For large-scale enterprises, it becomes essential for defenders to continuously automate the intelligence plan, harness the technical information used by attackers, and have countermeasures in place to protect their critical assets. Today, we have a very close friend to the Nullcon family, Avkash Kathiriya, who is a VP at Thwart and a chapter leader for the Null Mumbai group. He has 12 years of experience in threat hunting, threat intelligence and research, SOC management, and so on. For those who are new to the Nullcon webinar, if you have any questions, please use the Zoom chat window. They would be answered after Avkash finishes his presentation. So without any further delay, let's welcome Avkash to deliver his presentation on operationalizing threat intelligence for collective defenses.
Thank you, Antriksh, and thank you, Nullcon team, for hosting me and allowing me to share the knowledge on this platform. Let me share my screen. I hope you can see my screen. Yes. Okay. So without wasting much time, we will straight away start with our topic: operationalizing threat intelligence for collective defense, and just a quick sneak peek on what are we going to talk today, the high level collective defense, passive defense, active defense. I keep hearing this word into many client interactions, or when we were also doing a lot of board meetings or talking to the management, you keep hearing these words about different types of defense and where does the threat intelligence fit and how does it fit into those defense strategies. And then we'll just quickly touch upon few basics of threat intel. We'll not spend much time because I'm sure many of you will be joining and will know about the threat intel and the types. And we will, the main agenda for our discussion is we will talk about this journey where, typically when you are starting your threat intelligence journey for any organization, what are the three key things and how, you will orchestrate your intel or go towards the collaboration or collective defense, and then few key takeaways and some good resources to go through, some blogs to read upon I will share, and obviously I will be sharing the slides as well, so that you can go through those resources afterwards. Few slides I might have put just from a knowledge perspective, and I might skip as an FYI for this audience, so if somebody is referring to those afterwards as well can benefit from the knowledge. So just one quick slide on how we take our defense strategies and how this left side, if you see, passive defense is always known for us, and we were going through this thing when we have implemented those security controls we called more preventive controls to prevent the cyber threats. But we realized that preventing the cyber threats is not only strategy which will work in a long run, and that's where we started moving towards more detection and response strategies and active defense, what we call, where we want to make sure that we are proactively monitoring what we have implemented if somebody is bypassing those, or proactively gathering the knowledge about the threats and start managing the threats or the risk which we are foreseeing today. And the last stage, I would say it's not the last stage, but the next stage is more on collective defense, where this two new things about orchestration as well as collaboration takes the center stage. And why this is important, today all we know that yes, people keep saying that we have a shortage on the cybersecurity skill resources, but what are we doing today to make sure that yes, we have the people, they have best in brain, but how can we make sure that we are keeping those mundane tasks away from those analysts to make sure that they apply their brain where it needs to be, and on those research tasks and analysis tasks more, rather than filling up the Excel and looking up some consoles. So we have to take the help of automation or orchestration at that stage to make sure that we are equally utilizing our manpower. And then the collaboration. We keep hearing that let's say on attacking side, people are developing the tool, they are putting up on the GitHub, and attackers are also reusing those tools which are being developed. So a lot of collaboration is happening on one side of the fence. Why can't on the other side of the fencing, when you are trying to defend your organization from those attacks, how are you collaborating with other organization to make sure, if learning from one organization, if they have faced during one cyber attack or one cyber threat while handling, how they responded to that threat, what were the characteristics of that threat, and how what were the controls that you have put together, and how you can leverage proactively without being targeted. If you know that that company is similar industry, and you can capture the same thing and implement proactively, that's where collaboration will play a crucial role. I know it's a starting point where every organization is trying their best to go into this direction, but there's still long way to go into the whole collective defense. And when we start talking about threat intelligence, we always curious about threat intel. I know we have so many definitions of threat intel, and I still recollect my SOC days when I got introduced first time to a concept of threat intel. At that time, my problem statement was, hey, I have so many firewall logs in front of me, and it's thousands of log. How do I identify what is good and what is bad into this log, right? And that's where I started using some threat intel, correlating those firewall logs and prioritizing some event which might look suspicious and go and investigate, okay, what happened after this IP tried connecting one of my web application, right? So that's where I got introduced to the concept of threat intel, and we used to call threat feeds as part of SIEM, when we were being a SIEM administrator, to integrate multiple threat feeds and logs and write correlation rules to identify needle in a haystack, what we used to call. And it's still needle in a haystack, because applications are grown up, logs have grown up. So this one question I keep hearing from many freshers as well, who are starting their career, to know about threat intelligence. So there are many things if you want to talk about threat intelligence. And many times I've been told that yes, you need to know the science behind the threat intel. But maybe when I started, I never knew the science behind the threat intel. I started by simply downloading some zip packages of some IOCs and just correlating those, or maybe automating through some Python script. But as I grown into this field, I started doing some research that, okay, what are the basics when you want to go and start looking into the threat intel. And that's where I started becoming more curious to learn more a science way. Yes, this is one good way to start, where you will get the theoretical knowledge about the threat intel and know the basics before you start going into the hands-on with the threat intelligence. So let's first talk the science way, that what are the basics about the threat intel and the standards about the threat intel. And one thing that absolutely comes in my mind is this picture. It says, tell me again how you how your threat data feed provide threat intel. And there are two contexts here. If you see data feeds and the intel, many times people confuses between these two, that okay, I have subscribed to threat data feeds and that's my threat intel. Maybe it's just for you, but no for me. If I need to go and look more a science way, that what is the difference between these three things, what we keep hearing in our day-to-day life. So what you start capturing the data from multiple sources, I still call it as data or data feeds, unless and until you apply the right context to that data. Means how this data is relevant to me, right? If I am a bank, if I am a financial institute, and somebody sends me a malware sample targeting, or let's say a Stuxnet malware sample, and somebody says, hey, this threat happened in some corner of the world where nuclear power plant was attacked, and I blindly get the malware hash and the other technique, and I process in my organization. But is it relevant for me? Being a bank, I'm not running any nuclear power plant, right? So maybe it's a good data feed. I should know that what kind of threats are happening in other industries and other part of the world. But you should always apply the context, that how this data is contextual to you. And there are many methods. We will talk about how to make this data contextual, but that's where that data is becoming information for you, and it's more relevant for you now, and it start taking a shape of threat intelligence, right? And this is where you start applying whatever you have got, and whatever applied information is the last step. It's a learning. Once you have applied that threat intel, as I was saying, in my initial sock day, I randomly used to download those data feed. But when I applied that, correlated with the firewall logs, and I had my own learning, that whether it is really I'm able to find out some CNC communication happening in my infrastructure, or some data exfiltration happening from my organization, that I called applied information or more knowledge. Now I have started capturing on my knowledge, that once I got this data, and I had an information, how it was useful for my organization. So these are typical three pyramids, or one pyramid having three layers into your journey when you start consuming the data and when you start using this data. This is all about basics of threat intel of the data. But as you more deep dive, you will find that there are multiple types of intelligence, and we may be dealing with one or two, some may be dealing with three, or some may be dealing with all four types of threat intelligence. And again, when I was also on other side of the table defending for the large organization, each and every strategy that we used to define, I always try to relate every cybersecurity strategy with more, physical world. How in military, somebody, are using the concepts like, there also we have the concepts of intelligence, right? Threat intelligence, or deception, we call honeypots, or decoys, right? So somewhere you will see that this all concepts are still being used into the physical world as well. And if you go and look for this definition, are still applied in military age as well, where we keep harnessing the strategic intelligence, operational intelligence, tactical intelligence, technical intelligence, and different methods. And if you divide this into two parts, the macro and the micro side of it, so one side you will see the strategic and operational are still more humanish, means those are built for human to read, consume, and act upon, while the other side is still have more machine touch, where machine can read automatically, or enrich, or analyze, or act upon those information. Obviously, I'm not going into detail about the type, but I just want to make sure that we are just not talking, when I say threat intel, we are just not talking about a technical, just IOCs, IP domain URL hash, and not just TTPs as well. What we call MITRE ATT&CK Navigator. We have the tactics, tools, and procedure, but we go beyond and think operational intelligence, where many companies also do. There's a new concept of DRM, digital risk monitoring, and there are very friends into the industry who are running the company who does the operational threat intelligence today. So again, when you start talking the science way, I know it's boring, but you need to start somewhere. But let's go more into practical things, and let's discuss the transformer way. And I pretty much like, I'm a big fan of transformers, so maybe that's why I keep relating this thing with the transformers. But why I say there's one analogy behind I'm telling this more transformer way is, I still know that feeling when you are part of a SOC, right? And your life is going smooth. Daily, you are analyzing hundreds of alert. I know 80% of those are false positive. Somewhere 15% are somewhere true positive, but small event. But you always wait for that 5% of the event to happen in your SOC, where you are under a big attack. I know my manager will never like it. My organization will never want that. But that's the day when you start feeling like a transformers, right? When you are really into the battle, and somebody is there who are attacking you, and you need to be prepared and onto the ground, and some suddenly you feel that yes, you are into the battle and you are learning a lot. Sometimes people says that we pray that incident not happen to the organization, and I want to keep running smooth operation. But I always prayed that, at least once in a quarter, one incident should happen, because so many learning I had by, if I keep aside my learning of, reading the books or the article, and the learning which I got from actually or practically handling those incidents is two different apart word. And that's why I start aligning these concepts with, the transformers, the two good learning, which we will talk afterwards. But if you are in a SOC and you're talking threat intelligence and you're talking transformers, right? So this is a good analogy when somebody asks that, when to use threat intel, right? So typically, three pillars I would put into this slides is, before an attack, during an attack, and after an attack. Threat intel is not something, people call it more predictive side or predictive strategy, means when you are not under attack, keep consuming the threat intel. But that's not the only phase, right? Before an attack, yes, it's true, before an attack you must be consuming the intel proactively, searching for those IOCs or the intel which may be relevant to you and your organization, your industry. But when you are into an attack, during an attack, right, when you are onto the ground and actually doing an incident investigation, there is lot many intel is lying there in that incident. You need to make sure that you are documenting those intel when you are investigating those incident, and not just using the existing intel, generating the intel, but using the existing intel which you have uh, collected beforehand. You need to make sure that those intel also you are applying to build a right context and go to the root of that incident. That, people keep asking that RCA is most important part when you are in an incident, right? So how you go to the root part, or how you get the root cause analysis, somewhere threat intel plays a crucial role in that journey. And after an attack, right, you should not sit back and, yes, my incident is over, and I was attacked and I captured my learning. You should not just stop at capturing the learnings, but can we go more collaborative in nature? Can I collaborate the information which I collected within my organization to the different team members? Like, I have vulnerability management team, I have red teamers who I can go and share the learning, or I have my threat hunting team who I can go and ask for build new hunt hypothesis, or I have my risk management team, I can go and ask to change some policy, or document some new risk. So there are multiple internal collaboration that should start, and also the external collaboration. You should start sharing your learning, and the incident that you have observed and the intel that you have harnessed during that learning, how fast and quickly you can go and share those learning after an attack. So these are the three phases how you will use threat intelligence. But the two learning which I was saying from the transformer, right, which I personally carry forward and try to touch base with threat intel concept, is the automation and collaboration. That why these two concepts are important. Obviously there are many basics concept. We will see the whole threat intel life cycle consists of multiple phases, but today I'm going to touch base only these two concepts, automation and collaboration. And why this automation, right? Because people many times keep asking me that, yes, automation is a buzzword, orchestration is a buzzword, but there are very basic steps where you should be making sure that you are applying an automation, as I was saying, that to make sure that those mundane tasks from an analyst are going away, right? So one classic example, if I want to make you understand that why automation sometimes is required for those mundane tasks. For example, I know in a SOC there is a mundane process. Whenever you receive an email from your regulator, if those email has some threat advisory and has some IOC, I need to extract those IOC and I need to initiate a task. I need to block it on a firewall or on a proxy. That's a set of commands which are frozen and defined, and there is no brainer into it. So why don't you use an automation for those tasks where I know when you will raise those ticket, it might take 2 hours or 4 hours or 6 hours sometime, where you just automate those tasks and maybe it can be done in 5 minutes or 10 minutes with just help of one human touch. So there are many examples you will see where automation is really required. But to look at the glance, when I was talking about the threat intel life cycle, you have multiple phases if you see on the screen. ingestion of the intel, enrichment of the intel, collaboration, decision making, and the response part of the threat intel, where you actually act upon those intel, and obviously the governance aspect of the threat intel. So I've tried to put a few things where, if you see some icons, the machine icon and the human icon, I've tried to build some context that what can be automated and what are the things where you will need human intervention, and what are the things you may need collaboration between human and machine both. And again, this is my own perception, being on the field, what I have learned, and I've tried to put. There is no thumb rule anywhere written that this is a nirvana way, but yes, this is from the learning. I've tried to put that what are the operations which you can automate in each of the life cycle. And one concept, practically, if I want to talk, and many people keep asking, is this new concept. People say threat fusion, and again, this is how maybe a operational look in any SOC will look like, where you have incident case management happening. Somebody are using a MITRE ATT&CK Navigator on one side, where you are treating it as a framework to capture all the TTPs, tool, techniques, and the procedure. And maybe you are maintaining your own threat actor database or the malware database from your own learnings. And on the other side, you have external intel sources to enrich and analyze your information further, or you have a standard database of your threat actors, the TTPs, and the relation intrusion set that you're capturing from external side. And also internal sources or the technologies like malware sandbox, or the malware analysis, or the EDR solutions, or many other IPS, IDS solutions which you have deployed, and continuously capturing the learning or the intel from those sources, and you are fusing all at one place to make sure you are having the right relations built. Uh, and if you will see on this, I have tried to put two types of intel, more technical and tactical both in nature, where IOCs, TTPs, threat actor, malware, how you can correlate. For example, I know my attack navigator, where I can correlate my threat actor tools procedure, but how can I stitch my IOC data, the malware hash data, back to the attack navigator, which is what something we have missing today. So when you are harnessing your threat intel, how you can continuously tie it back to the TTPs, or when you are reading some threat reports, threat attack reports, how you can continuously extract the TTP tokens from it, and you can create your own database and start tagging it to any incident that you observed or any IOC that you investigate. So there are many tools I have seen people are releasing. Again, I will talk a few tools on collaboration side, but if you are interested, MITRE also released last week one more project called Shield, which is super important for defenders. And also there's one more project CAD, cyber analytics repository from MITRE, where not just attack framework of Windows, Linux, Mac, but how you can attach those TTPs to the cyber analytics. For example, I know that credential dumping can happen in one machine from 10 different ways. But as a defender, how and what kind of analytics you can write to detect those TTPs. And that's where the CARE projects come into the picture, where people are contributing as an open source and creating a repository of CARE objects for each TTPs. Maybe down the line, people can automatically use the orchestration. When you receive some intel, you have some TTP in your hand, go and fetch the respective CARE objects, which is nothing but a JSON, and then you decipher and run the orchestration on, let's say, on Splunk. Go and hunt that event ID and automatically do the retrospective search and put incident in your incident management system if something is found. So many such use cases can be done using those open source projects. Now, let's go to the last phase, the collaboration, which I said, the another learning from the transformers, I would say, again, how you can collaborate to make sure that you are countering those threats equally and collaboratively, that what somebody else has learned, can I learn and, counter the threats effectively. And there are three phases. First, you need to make sure when you are starting a collaboration, you are actually operationalizing and automating whatever the things that you have got in your hand. Then go towards the collaboration, unidirectional collaboration, what I call. At least you start being participant to those community, who are sharing this, threat intel knowledge with each other. How can you at least automatically or manually consume this intel being generated by those community? And then the third phase is the bi-directional, where you are not just a consumer into those community, but you are also producer into those community, producing an intel and sharing the intel back to those bi-directional communities. So the first phase, as we have seen, operationalization. So I was saying there are small nitty-gritties which I might not go into, but if you see, you are getting the feeds from multiple source. The first thing that you do is normalization, and again, uh, I personally find sticks is the best standard that exists today to normalize your intel. There is a sticks 2.0, 2.1. I still remember there is year back there was a Nullcon talk from Alan Thomas where he introduced the sticks 2.0 and many concepts of 2.1, which are really fascinating. If somebody wants to start into threat intelligence, then I would say that's a must-watch video of Elan from understanding the basics of sticks and how you can normalize the intel. And then comes the enrichment analysis phase and scoring algorithms. Again, people develop their own algorithm. I have also worked on few algorithms which we have developed, and I'm working on those algorithms to automatically prioritize or score your intel. And then the last phase is you segregate your intel and act on that intel, because at the right time you need to take action on that intel is much important. You think of, you have your raw agency and you have your police agency, law enforcement agency. If some intel come and then you're just sitting on that intel and not acting upon it, it's just an information for you, right? So it is utmost important whenever you get an intel to analyze that intel and act on that intel on a timely manner. Otherwise, intel is of no use. That's why the first phase is super important when you will start to operationalize. The second phase is, again, I was saying the unidirectional automation, where let's say there is an attacker using tool version 1.0. He launched the attack on organization 1 on the left side, but this organization is smart enough to analyze this incident and capture technical and tactical aspect of this intel, documenting and generating the internal intel, then sharing it unilaterally into the communities where people are sharing and prioritizing this intel. Then you are the organization to at least you to start with, where you are consuming the intel being generated from this private communities or public communities, proactively applying those intel on security control level, so that if the same attacker comes, maybe it is using the different tool set, different IOCs. My malware hash is changed, the URL infra is changed, the domain or the IP I have changed. But let's say I'm using the same technique. I have used a common technique of credential dumping and I'm reusing in my new tool. If you have proactive knowledge and applied those tactical controls along with the technical controls as well, you might be able to survive that attack. So it is important to look intel beyond technical way, and also being participant at least unidirectionally into the next phase. And the last phase I call Nirvana phase. This is my dream. Maybe someday people and you know communities start collaborating in a real time fashion, using everything end to end automated, where one organization see some incident and report, analyze automatically and report to another organization. Another organization also doing some analysis, some automatically, some manually, and then again sharing it to the other members further. And we are capturing the score at not just my organization level but at a community level, that how many organization in my community has reported or seen the same threat, right? As soon as somebody reports, the score goes up. So this is called power of collaboration. Somebody says compounding average, how you can use the power of compounding. This is what exactly gets applied here, where you use the power of community to enhance your confidence on the intel that you are receiving today, and then you start acting upon those intel in real time. So just few takeaways from the session which we have seen. Yes, you need to get your basics correct. uh, Focusing just on technical intel might not help you. You need to go and look beyond technical intel, which are tactical aspects, where explore the projects like the MITRE attack navigator or the cyber attacks analytics repository or shield projects which has got launched, or there are efforts going on the Stix taxi side. OASIS are doing a lot of efforts to streamline even orchestration on the Kakao community is there. So look beyond technical aspect, then try to automate what all things you can automate. So you are making sure your mundane task stress goes away from your Intel analyst, and you are not using your analyst just to fill up some Excel sheets or generating some tickets. And the third phase is the collaboration, where you are taking collaboration as a key aspect, and start with within the organization collaboration. Make sure you start at home. You are collaborating internally within your offensive teams, red teamers, threat hunting team, risk management team, security architects, to make sure that whatever intel you got, you are equally disseminating amongst all of them, and you are taking their view. So next time when they do their red team activities or threat hunting team is building their threat hunting hypothesis, they are equally aware that what tactic I should target or what technique I should target. And then comes the collaboration at community level, where you become a participant to the ISACs. There are multiple ISACs like FS ISAC, H ISAC, legal ISAC, IT ISACs, where people share the intel with each other, or there are private communities who run and share the intel with each other. There are many CERT organization who runs those community, or the regulatory bodies run those communities. So be a part of those community to get the effective use of the intel. Some good resources I have put, maybe many medium blog sources, and some videos are there. You can go through to get more understanding, or if you are thinking how to start, there are really good blogs put together by Kathiriya. Recently, I think few weeks back, she has wrote one blog, and also I was referring to one of the talk of Elan, if you want to go into the Stix taxi. Also one good blog which I personally like from Andy, an analyst need for threat intel platform. What are the things you should look when you start using threat intel in your day-to-day operation? Uh, with that, I would summarize my talk here. Hope you have enjoyed, and open to the floor for any further question answers.
Thank you so much, Avkash. I have one question with regards to your Nirvana stage slide. You said power of community and sharing. Apart from certs and the FSISEC and the other organizations, because most of our enterprises and attendees are from the Indian subcontinent, do you know of any such organization where people can collaborate and share intel? Any organizations or bodies?
Yeah, so when you want to collaborate, there are multiple sources externally. As I said, one is maybe ISAC. Then I have seen people generally collaborate with the CERT or regulatory bodies, and there are regional bodies as well. Let's say I have seen in India as well, the banking forums have their own private bodies where they collaborate the intel in a real time. But there are open communities also has come up, and one good example is MESP community. Though MESP is an open source tool which I have seen, but there are many communities created around there which start collaborating intel, and they keep publishing those galaxy. A recent good example I recollect is the whole COVID-19, and there are multiple. There is one community called CTI League, and there are Slack channels for CTI League also available, where people are collaborating on the Intel side. And there is one specific community I recollect for. I don't recollect the name. COVID-19 threat intel. Maybe I can share that information afterwards. But there are many communities which has come. They run the Slack channels. They run those web portals where people go and proactively share those intel. And those are like platforms, but still, from the learning perspective, I have seen many communities. Classic example, I would say Null and OS, where knowledge perspective, because knowledge is also one of the aspect where you need to know what new tactics some attackers has come up, or new tools which has come up, and you may go and try into your lab and create your own intel out of those techniques, and create a defensive controls for those techniques. So there are multiple examples. Maybe this is a good point. I would say I should, create a central page somewhere for someone to go through all those, common collaboration tools, and might be someone can, utilize that.
I think you definitely should write a blog on Sci Social about it. It will help the larger community. We have one question of Akash. Let me read it for you.
Yeah.
Can you share areas, activities that you have automated as part of SOC activities?
Yeah, 100%. There are n number of use case I can talk. I can talk for hours for this, but one or two good use case, if I want to tell you, let's say a classic example, maybe you can see is vulnerability management. Sometimes I keep hearing that how can I triage my vulnerability with threat intel, right? It's an interesting thing where as an organization, I have like maybe hundreds of vulnerabilities to patch today, some infrastructure vulnerability, application level vulnerabilities, but uh, there are many models that exist to prioritize your vulnerability, but that one of the method and automation you can use, let's say, you receive one vulnerability information associated with any threat actor. You figured out or you received a report saying that APT28 is exploiting this CVE whenever they target any threat operations in particular geography. Now from your Intel operations, you got one CVE which is priority and targeting, let's say, a telecommunication sector in a pack. Now, how you can prioritize automatically? So let's say you consume this CVEID, you write automation to look up into your Nessus or polish tool automatically. Let's say in past 1 month or 3 months, have I found this vulnerability open in my infrastructure, right? If found, yes. Can you tell me which asset or which application was it found? You get the IP from that polish or Nessus result, go and look up that into your asset CMDB to identify which asset and who is the application owner, which is the application where it is hosted, and then maybe you want to go and create a ticket automatically to prioritize the patching of that vulnerability, or maybe I want to send a SMS notification, email notification to the application owner saying that hey, I found this vulnerability super critical from my Intel source, and you should patch this within next 24 hours. So one automation, let's say, which we have seen to vulnerability triaging and prioritization. A similar way, I was saying that many times people are bogged down with these advisories they receive, so they want to automate. Let's say whenever I receive an email from my regulator, I know that these are the 5 steps that I do. I copy those IOCs from my email. I look up to my existing repository which I have, and I also look up to virus total or hybrid analysis to make sure and bring the additional context. Or let's say I have one enterprise grade feed which I have purchased. I want to look up that source and bring additional context. Let's say, is it related? What is the score as per FireEye or McAfee or Trend Micro, or what is the score from VT or hybrid analysis? Prioritize that automatically, and then take action. Maybe create a ticket or push it to my proxy device to block that URL. And once all the actions are taken, there is a compliance guy in my team. I want to send a summary. Hey, I received one advisory from our regulator. These are the 10 steps which was done automatically, and this is a summary. You go and do your compliance reporting if you want. So maybe this is the task where uh, we were not taking much help of a human, and we were just following some procedure. You can automate those things. And there are many. Maybe we can talk and can discuss offline. But yes, these are a few use cases I can think of top of my mind.
Akash, there's another question.
Yeah.
How can I integrate antivirus with TI? Only taking IOC and blocking it, or is there any other way we can do it?
Yeah. So if you go back to my slide where I was saying that Intel, right, has to be actioned somewhere, and this is one of the method to action your Intel. And uh, uh, one of the aspect, many time I see that I got a malware hash as an Intel. What should I do with it? Because monitoring that hash today is difficult from an SIM perspective. There is a reason behind it, because many people are not sending those relevant logs into their SIM, which will have one field called malware hash or file hash. but still people rely on many technologies like antivirus, or the new versions are EDR, where people can consume the IOCs like malware hash or sometime domain as well. So yes, you can consume into antivirus. Let's say you want to create a list of blacklist. You have created a custom blacklist, and you want to keep populating those malware hash into those antivirus blacklist I have. Many organizations we have seen that EDRs are getting popular. So they write custom signatures into the EDR, where I create a TI block list, and I write a EDR signature saying that if in any of the machine, if I find this file has been executed into the memory, you trigger an alarm or trigger a EDR signature for that. So yes, in antivirus or EDR, popularly we have seen people are consuming TI and primarily the malware hash to block or monitor any activities of any executables happening on the endpoint.
All right. Of course, there's one more question which I missed earlier. Can we get the
Yeah.
TI resource on chat window? I'm not very sure what did he mean by that.
Maybe this TI resources, some reading material somebody wants in a chat window.
I think this last slide. I think the last slide that you mentioned. But anyways,
Yeah,
we'll be
I'll be
recording
sharing.
this
Yes.
entire.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll record this entire webinar and upload it on our YouTube channel for attendees and subscribers of Nullcon to watch it later. Uh, Friends, if you have any more questions, this is the time. But I would like to also share, please check out Cyway Social. It's the most trending news feed portal for anything related to threat intel globally. So please do check that out. Avkash is part of Cyware, and yeah, it's a beautiful news feed portal.
Thanks, Antriksh, for telling that out. I think many community initiatives we attend to do, especially specifically in threat intel aspects, where we'll be sharing, few pages, as I said, because many times people come and what is a good place to start, or can I have the central page to look out any enterprise grade feed I want to purchase, or OSINT feed I want to try out, or any community that exists which I can go and participate into, or what to be done after I get intel, or what are open source project which we keep hearing about, the MITRE ATT&CK Navigator or Cyber Attacks Repository or Shield project. So how can we make a use of those things? So yes, we'll try to do as much possible for community knowledge sharing.
Well then, thank you so much, Avkash. Thank you for our audience for joining us today. We would be back with another webinar next month. Dates are yet not confirmed. Do check us on our social media and website for future announcements. Until next time, thank you so much and stay safe.
Thank you, Nalcon.